dumb today. He's only dumb because he failed to read.
Now, Minister John Muhammad, were you born and raised right here in the city of Chicago?
No, I'm more Southern boy.
Southern?
I'm more Southern boy. I was born in the South.
Where at?
In South Carolina.
South Carolina. Now, what brought you from South Carolina to Chicago?
Well, many things. I left South Carolina when I was a young boy. I've been through many places. I went to Florida. I lived in Florida. And I lived in Newark, New Jersey. And I lived in Detroit, Michigan. I lived in Hartford, Connecticut. That's where I heard Islam when I was in Hartford, Connecticut. I heard Islam there at a temple, a Moorish Science temple, where the Muslim that day was renting having a meeting in a Moorish Science temple. That's why I first heard Malcolm teach.
You heard Malcolm in Hartford, Connecticut?
In Hartford, Connecticut.
Now, that was a few years ago. What year was that?
That was back in the 50s.
Back in the 50s. I wouldn't even thought of. I didn't get here to 62. Wow. And so, but when the first time you heard somebody teaching the messengers teaching back in the 50s, you saw Malcolm X in the flesh.
Yes.
That was it for you?
Well, he was teaching such a strong doctrine. I mean, I've been in the Army. I've been around the world. I mean, I've seen things. I've seen what white people have done in the South. And I know what white people have done. I've seen what they have done. I've seen the time in the South where we had to we was going to church, and from the watermelon field, we would stop and eat watermelon. But on the way to church, we'd hear the white people coming down the road in old A-Mile Ford, laughing how they're going to hang a coon tonight. And we would hear them, and we had to run in the bushes and hide until they passed. They were drinking moonshine. And we were coming from town on a Saturday. You could hear them coming down the road in an A-Mile Ford. And they was talking about how they were going to hang up a coon tonight. So we all had to run and hide. So all of these things I've heard. I mean, I knew firsthand. So when Malcolm began to teach the history, when I first heard, I didn't join the first night. I joined the second time. When he began to teach the histories of this, and I heard him teaching the origin of the white man, and that really gassed me. And but I knew the white man was evil. I didn't know what he was. So when I heard that, then the first time I asked him a question that day, and he told me, yes, they all was devils. And I said, you mean to tell me all white men? I said, yes. And at that time, I have an aunt that lived in Glastonbury, Connecticut. She was married to a white fella. And that day, that was all I never heard of. And I was living with her. And when I came back from the temple that night, I asked him that morning at the breakfast table, I said, why didn't you tell me the devil? He said, you never asked me. But point being, well, he was joking or not, but he told me this. He said he was a Shriner. And so he said, you hold on to what you got. He said, don't care about my wife. You don't worry about her. Because she put me out. She told me I had to be gone in 2 weeks because I embraced this doctrine. And he said, hold on to that. Don't you dare let that go. You on to something. Hold on to it.
It's the white man.
The white man told me.
Who's a Shriner.
Who's a Shriner.
Told you to hold on to the teachings of Elijah.
That's right.
Wow, this is back in the 50s.
That's in the 50s.
See, because let's go real quick into that. What is the relationship between the Shriners and Islam? Because there's something there, and I know you know.
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Muslims, Shriners, they're called Muslim sons. They're Muslim sons. In other words, Islam is the father. Islam is the whole pie. And the Shriners have a slice. They call it 32nd or 33rd degree of knowledge. They cut a slice out of the pie, and the whole thing's a 360 degree. But if one part is called Masonry or Shriner, what's the other part called? It's called Islam. That's why you find Masons, they have the sword turned upside down and the sword turned on top. The moon is turned down, and the sword is on the bottom. But the thing is that this knowledge was given to the white man during the time of Prophet Muhammad, so the white man could clean himself up and come among civilized people, and the civilized people wouldn't kill him as quick as they would if he not had cleaned up. So therefore, you see the shrines, they clean up. They're nice and clean people. And they have a temple called the Medina Temple, and they have a temple called Mecca. The temple in Detroit is called Mecca. The temple in Chicago is called the Medina. And the same distance between Mecca and Medina in the Middle East, the same distance between here in Chicago.
Now, Brother Sharif told me that years ago. No, I think